As part of Science Foundation Ireland's AI for Societal Good Challenge, a team at NUI Galway is looking at using artificial intelligence to revolutionise the treatment of lung cancer. Although ablation is a useful non-surgical treatment, it has some disadvantages for both the patient and the clinician.
Ablation is a technology where you introduce a needle into the tissue where there's a cancerous region, and you heat that tissue to above 55 degrees. Once you heat the tissue to that level, the cancer cells start to die. So it's a really nice way to treat cancer where you're often not requiring open surgery, you don't have a lot of scarring, and the risk of bleeding for the patient is very low. I suppose the one challenge that physicians face is there is no current imaging technology which gives real-time feedback to the clinician about where exactly that heat is going. At the moment, they're essentially using, I suppose, inferior technology to kind of guess where the heat is and guess where that tissue death is. So what that means for the patient is they may be over-treated, and 6 months down the line, they have a smaller amount of healthy lung tissue there, which results in breathlessness and other challenges for the patient.
If you're to take an analogy, it's like kind of baking a cake, but you can't actually use your eyes to see when it's done. You're actually having to guess from experience when it's ready.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And if you talk to clinicians who do this procedure, they will take a CT image before the procedure, and then they'll take a CT image 5 minutes after they've done the procedure and the next day. So they're only really seeing where the heat went after the heat has been delivered. And so what we want to do is provide continuous information. So that means that they can really precisely define where the heat goes and where the treatment goes.
So the name suggests there's an intelligence bit of this. Can you explain where the artificial intelligence comes in?
So we have an array, a wide number of sensors on the surface of the patient, and all of them are measuring multiphysics data. And a huge amount of data is being generated, and we need to create an image of that in real time for the doctor. So it's not good enough that we have an image 5 minutes later, we need it instantly. So we have a software algorithm that takes all of that sensor data and converts it into real time, into an image which is really intuitive and interpretable by the physician. And we can also layer that image on top of the CT image that they already have. And so they can see both where the tumor is, but also where the heat is going. And in an ideal clinical scenario, you will see the entire tumor region becoming enveloped in heat. And so then the clinician can be really confident that the tumor has been treated.
This just feels incredible. You're allowing a clinician without a camera to be able to see exactly what's happening inside the body, just using the power of a huge amount of data. Like, that's phenomenal. I spoke with Professor Aoife Lowry, a cancer surgeon and the group's clinical lead, who thinks this technology is going to have a big impact. So I know this project is focused on the lungs. Can you see it being used in other areas?
Absolutely, and that's what's most interesting to me about this project. We're developing the technology now for an unmet need in lung cancer, but this technology will be applicable to all ranges of solid tumours and will be most applicable in organs where the preservation of functional tissue is important. So for example, tumours in the kidney or tumours in the adrenal gland or other glands where you're trying to treat the tumour but preserve the function of the rest of the organ. This ablative approach and the ability to monitor the ablation zone in real time will be revolutionary. As the outcomes for many cancers are improving significantly in terms of survival, what we're focusing on now increasingly is investigating treatment options that will effectively treat a cancer, but also provide the patient with a better functional outcome. So minimal morbidity, less side effects of treatment, better quality of life overall. So it's not just about surviving cancer, it's about living well after cancer.
Making sure that the patient voice was heard was the role of Anne-Marie Baird, who has years of experience advocating for lung cancer patients.
I think part of my role as Societal Impact Champion is humanising the disease. Because when you humanise something, it gets people to think in a slightly different way, and then they can envisage people in a clinic, people dealing with a diagnosis, and actually making use of your solution and having better outcomes. One of the really key things I think that struck with Martin and the team was that when I took back some feedback from people impacted by lung cancer, when they had surgery, they were told, "You're very lucky. you know. So it was kind of like, you're lucky, so you kind of have to deal with the side effects of surgery, which are quite long term. And one person in particular I spoke to, she said, well, do you know this? It's the price I had to pay to stay alive. And that's a very emotive statement. And I think that kind of really hit home with the team that, you know, what they're trying to do is create a better treatment option so that people won't be feeling that they have to take this and then live with the really difficult quality of life issues that they're going to have from maybe more traditional kind of surgeries or other treatments. So less invasive techniques are always going to make a big difference.
To try and make the clinical pathway more seamless, to try and integrate diagnosis with treatment. And this is something that I think we're going to see increasingly with lung cancer as lung cancer screening expands, because there are going to be a lot more early stage lung tumours diagnosed. And if these have the potential to be treated with ablation, avoiding the need for major surgery in these patients, it's going to be a huge step forward.
Where they hope the technology will end up is that a patient will get diagnosed one day for a lung tumour. On the same day they have a biopsy. On the same day they have ablation therapy enabled by this imaging technology. So you can diagnose and treat all within one procedure. And we're now developing, all of these tools are coming together, so that will be a reality.
What you're describing sounds like almost the future of healthcare, where it's not kind of patients coming in with large gaps between treatment and all that goes with those gaps, those concerns. Technology is allowing us maybe to kind of reduce those gaps, and they could be diagnosed and treated on exactly the same day.
If we see how heart disease is treated, you know, in the 70s and 80s, everyone had open surgery, had triple bypasses, and it was this big invasive procedure. And now there's been a complete shift to stenting. So there's no open surgery. Patients have a single day procedure and go home. And what we'd like to see is a similar transformation happen for cancer treatment. So you can have a patient coming in, being diagnosed, biopsied, and treated on the same day. There's no open surgery, there's no risk of chronic pain, and there's no breathlessness for the patient. And that's really transformative. It's good for the health service because we have shorter waiting lists, but it's good for the patients because we have much better outcomes and much better quality of life afterwards.